Hey guys, so if you're a product leader or AI curious entrepreneur, I think you're going to get a lot of value from this next short talk. A few weeks ago, I had a great opportunity to speak to the First Friday's Irish Startup event. So in this condensed 7-minute talk, I walk you through the basics of AI for startups and product managers, highlight some critical issues to be aware of when integrating AI, and share key takeaways that could be the difference between success and failure for any new venture that's AI curious. I'm working on some new videos, so don't forget to subscribe for more insights coming your way soon. Enjoy the video.
So my name is Robert O'Shaughnessy, and basically I'm a product developer. I've been in the game for about 20 years, worked for different Fortune 500 companies. And I also talk a lot about AI and XR and emerging tech on social media, so like and subscribe. So I've decided to give kind of a quick whistle-stop tour of generative AI and how I see the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem playing out with this. So this is my problem. AI is ruining my sleep. So essentially, I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning ever since ChatGPT came out thinking, what does this mean? Are we headed toward dystopia? Is it going to be headed towards utopia? What are my kids going to do for a living? Maybe what am I going to do for a living in the next couple of years as this advances? But I'm also really excited as a product developer and as a hacker. What cool things can we bring to the market, and what ways can we benefit society with this kind of new technology? So there's a lot of froth in the market at the moment. I think we're seeing every kind of industry from Google, Microsoft, tech, even this company Chegg, which did homework help. They've lost huge market share because now a tool like ChatGPT comes along and kind of devastates what they do. So we have all these companies strangling to figure out their strategies as the world changes very quickly around AI. So why is this all happening now? So AI has been around for 50 plus years in various different forms, but back in 2017, this thing came along, which is basically Transformers and generative AI. Sounds like a bad Michael Bay film, but it's actually this novel neural network architecture that basically was introduced by Google Brain team back in 2017. And then subsequently, lots of other things happened that I can't cover. But also another big milestone was in 2019, Microsoft came along and gave $1 billion to OpenAI to say, here, take in all the data you can, train it on a load of GPUs, and get a load of people to verify and tag and all this content so it's reinforced and it learns. And that's what GPT became. And we had 1, 2, and 3, and it advanced on from there. So what kind of applications are we seeing in generative AI? How is this being applied in the market? So a big one is art and design. So this is huge effects on graphic design, concept art, illustration, marketing. What used to take an artist maybe 3 or 4 weeks now can take a couple of seconds with just a generative AI prompt. So what kind of effect does that have on all these kind of areas going forward? In the same vein of image generation, product photography, and e-commerce, none of these images is real. They're all generated. You can swap out the clothing on a model. You can put a product in any given situation without the need for a product photographer. And this isn't real. This is me. I trained it on 20 images of myself, and now I can put myself in very lavish situations. I never have to go on holidays again. My Instagram is going to be next level. So how is this affecting film and TV? Sorry, these are 2 videos that are meant to play, but essentially you can actually generate whole films now, at least short ones, based on just putting in an image prompt. Now, the quality isn't great, but if we've seen how these models are increasing, what are these going to be like in the next 5 years? What does that mean for film production, TV? We don't know yet, but it's very interesting. And the biggest changes really are happening right now in marketing and copywriting. I think we've all maybe had a play with ChatGPT and seen how it can affect our day-to-day lives. My biggest recommendation is open it up in a tab in your browser and just play with it, whatever kind of task that you're working on in a given day. Ask it questions, learn from it, and see how it can help you. But this has huge effects on sales, marketing, operations. In fact, one of the big problems is now we can't really trust what we're seeing being put out there. And there's a lot of repetitive content that's just watered down, copied ChatGPT. So we have a lot of things to get over here. My biggest area, or most exciting area, is learning and education. So this is the idea that you can use a language learning model, or a Copilot to teach you at your own speed on any given topic that you have. So imagine what that means for education globally, even in emerging markets where you don't have as much access to teachers, or you have one teacher for 50 students. With something like this developing over the next few years, we can teach everybody at their pace how they learn at their own rate. Huge applications in coding and data analytics. I've used GitHub Copilot and a few other different tools to actually accelerate my coding. It's not going to make you a 10x coder, but you can see across such a domain that has so many people working in it, it's really going to lift all boats at the same time. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen if you're in data science. Drop in an Excel file, a CSV, or anything like that into ChatGPT and just start asking it questions. What does this mean? How many people are doing this? If I mix this with that, what happens? And you get all these insights that you never would have thought to look for before. There's whole teams of data scientists spend years pulling this kind of content out. Now you can just talk to your Excel file and it'll generate all different kinds of visualizations in 3D. It's something to be seen. So what is the strategy that's kind of playing out? And this is only a few months old. ChatGPT really launched on the market back in November 2022. What are we starting to see happen? So the good news is, if you're in startup land or if you're an existing SaaS company and you want to integrate these kind of tools, it's never been easier. You used to have teams of machine learning experts or data scientists to help you integrate this stuff. Now you can use things like Hugging Face or the OpenAI API to plug in intelligence into your platforms, and people are building really cool stuff. You can use no code and different tools like these to basically hack together solutions for your own given domain. So it's really cool. But the problem is, it's also really easy for everybody else as well. So what we're seeing is 100 tools being launched in a couple of days, thousands of tools over the space of a week. And to be honest, I'm looking at them all, they're all the same. They're the same copycat things. It's like the early days of the iOS store where everybody was releasing like a fart app or something like that. It's the same thing over and over again. So there's an advantage there for you. So the other thing I'm seeing is startups are building cutting edge features all on top of these open source models. So that's the great thing that I was saying before. You can jump into open source. You don't need to have a team of machine learning engineers. You can just basically start playing with this yourself. And the likes of Leonardo.ai built on top of Stable Diffusion are building some really cool features. Now, again, the problem is all these startups are building these. It's really easy for you to build them. So then Adobe comes along, or Microsoft or someone else, and says, oh, that's a great feature. I'm just going to pull that in. I own the market share already. I have all the people in my platform. I'm just going to pull them in here. And these guys will then lose their market share. So I saw so many startups come up with these ideas around cool features, but inevitably you realize that the big guys are just going to take them away. So you really need to differentiate, or you really need to hone down on a key part of your market in order to be successful. So my path to success, or at least what I'm seeing over the last few months, it's kind of the same as always. If anyone's read The Lean Startup or any of those kind of books, it's about focusing on a niche pain with a strong ROI. So if you have domain expertise, like in the likes of rugby or sports or any of the other panelists talk about, focus there and really start to solve those problems that have the return on investment. And that gives you an advantage over all these other developers who stretch straight for the easy to solve, low-hanging fruit. So focus on the really weird thing that you're into and solve a pain there, and there's going to be a big enough market. Can you disrupt the UX completely? So you have the likes of Salesforce, Microsoft, Adobe. They all have these products that they've spent 20 years developing with a certain user interface. There's new different modalities of interacting with computers that are coming now, like voice, speech, and even ways to interact with vision and XR that are coming. Is there an opportunity for you to change it completely in a way that Salesforce or some other company can't just easily jump in on top? And then, of course, always it's best to own the customer relationship and the data. So if you can own the relationship with the customer, they don't care what's being built underneath or what model is working or how you're doing it. They just care about how you're serving them. So as technology advances or new models, language models appear underneath, you can just swap them in and out and still serve the customer as best you can and keep your placement in the market. and owning the data, of course. I'll touch on that in a second. So what's coming next? To me, I'm super excited about multimodal AI. So right now we're seeing the individual application of language models and vision models across all these different markets. But what happens when you start to stack them all together? When you've got vision, text, speech, movement, all happening at the one time. And you can do that by tools like Hugging Face. You can mix and mash models and come up with really useful implementations that solve problems for companies. Coaching networks. So everybody has a foundational language model and we're all using the same one. So that's GPT-4, something like that. If you can actually start to use those models with your audience, and then as the customers in that company start to interact with the model and they go, oh, well, I wouldn't have said that, I would have said this, or that's not the best way to pitch that to a customer, let's do it this way. You can actually have that model look at the outcomes and say, oh, we actually sold more when this customer said this. So if you can train the existing model in that particular niche I mentioned earlier on, you've got something special that nobody else has. And then the last thing is co-pilots everywhere. So basically every piece of software, every SaaS, every time you talk to a parking machine outside, you're going to have an AI that's going to be assisting you with the journey through achieving what you need to do. So think about that and how it applies to your own startups and companies. So this is worth screenshotting. You'll get a million things on Twitter that say, okay, here's 1,000 new tools, or here's 100 new tools that are released today. I've looked at them all, and these are the ones that I use mostly on a day-to-day basis. It's ChatGPT, Notion, and a few other ones like that that I've found really useful for iterating and building. So that's it in a nutshell. It's kind of like a huge dump of information in 7 minutes. I love talking about this stuff, and I don't have enough people to talk to it about. My wife is sick listening to me on this topic. So like, drop me an email at rob@robshocks, and I also do consultation for free at info@Switch Dimension. And if anything AI or XR related, love to have a chat. Thanks so much.
If you got this far, thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to learn more about AI and emerging tech development, subscribe for more.